Welcome back. This is part 3. So we have, let's just try and zoom in a little bit. So we have now done the gate and the bill, the puffin, the eyes completed. And we've actually done the base layer on the upper and lower parts of the white sections of the bird. So now I want us to have a look at this cheek bit there. So I've now got him on my iPad and I've zoomed in quite a lot. So if you look carefully, we can see here where the fur or the feather, the downy feather parts of the bird, I tilt this slightly, but they're coming that direction there, and then just at the top here they're coming over the top of the bird there, and then they start to come down this way a little bit here, and then as they come down here they slightly swoop up that way and across there as well. So this is what we do have to keep an eye on, is how the feather, the sort of downy feather direction changes. So from here it goes down and then it goes up there. Now, as I said, white isn't pure white, but if we look over here, it is as white as you're going to get it. So there isn't a lot of detail in there. But here where we've got this colour, there is some detail. So I've mixed a colour which is a grey colour, which we can make lighter or darker for this section here and lighter for this section up here. And then what we're going to do is use a clean brush in some fresh water, and we're just going to soften in the feathers. And then here we've got where we've got a brownie coming into a darker black colour there, mingling into this little bit of a white section here at the bottom of the head, and then going into the dark section at the bottom of the bird. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is we're going to start off with a very light grey. If you look, it's sort of more of a, it's like a purpley grey really, so we could add a little bit of a red colour in there, but then as it comes down here it does get a little bit more of a bluey, it's got some bluey colours in it, and it's a darker grey on there. So we're going to start with the lighter colours first, and I'm going to use a very thin brush for this. I'm going to use I've got a couple of brushes here, but I'm going to use my I've got some brushes here. Now the Kolinsky Sable one, the series 33, if you look here, it's a long brush with a long point. So this is ideal for doing this sort of stroke, and you hold the brush quite far back and you can be a little bit lighter and just touch the paper. So we should be able to get some nice sort of lines there. So let's have a look at my colours. So mixing the grey, but we want it to sort of look a little bit of a so it's got sort of a pinky colour in there as well. So it's a pinky grey, purpley grey. So I've mixed my usual burnt sienna and blue. But then what I've done is I've just added a little bit of the permanent rose to it. So if you look now, it's sort of a grey, but it's got a pinky colour to it. Let me just put it on the edge of here. So that's got like a purpley colour to it as well, a purpley tone. So that's about right. And what I'm going to do is obviously I'll move a little bit up here and make it really, really light, and leave the other section sort of fairly dark. And then we'll start with the lightest. We're just going to go light to dark. So I've got my Kolinsky. I'll start with let's have a look. I'm going to use the 0 thing to start with. Okay. And then I've got my iPad here. So I've just moved my paints on that direct side, and then so I'm going to zoom in a little bit if you can see me. So I'm working up the top of the head just here. Okay. And like I said, it comes up quite, so it sort of comes up. So I'm doing some I'm hardly touching the paper. Now, it may look a little bit dark at the minute, but it does dry a lot lighter. And I'm doing some very tiny strokes here. And it sort of comes out to a teardrop shape there. It comes down this side a little bit here. Swooping round here. So I'm only putting very tiny little lines in odd areas. Okay, and around this bit. Some bigger stroking, and I'm spreading them out quite a distance because they aren't that close together. And then if you get sort of a darker area or where there's more colour concentrate, then yes, you can put a few more in there. And then at the bottom of the eye, it sort of comes out here. And then this is where it takes on the darker colour, but I shall put this light colour in first so I can map it out where we're going. Again, very lightly touching the paper, then that comes out and then it starts to spread out from there. Okay, so let me zoom out again a little bit just so you can see where I am working. Okay. So, again, I've got my cloth here just because I don't want great big globs of paint dropping on. And as I say, it comes down here. This is going to be a lot darker, so I'm just going to put this in very lightly, and then it sort of curls up there a little bit, and then it's where we have some of the darker downy feathers come in here. I'm going to just lighten this off a little bit. Go back up here, following the, oops, that's a little bit dark. More water there. Take the paint off, right, and then just following the direction of the fur and putting the odd. So here it turns down here a little bit, just again very sort of smaller, and then it comes around here, and then we've got some that come around here. So it is, I mean, I find the iPad ideal because I can zoom in as much as I want. You don't need to put this much detail in, it's entirely up to you, but I like to put detail in. It adds to it, and as long as you've got a good base layer underneath, you should be fine. And then here is where it's starting to get a little bit darker, so I'm going to put a bit more paint on here, and then that goes up there, so a lot more strokes here. Again, just keep your eye on the size of the strokes and which direction they go in. And then round this bit here, they're all sort of starting to come in. And we can pull them, sort of pull some of them out. And then again, just lighten some of this off a little bit. And then here, under here, where we're pulling this, we have some darker ones that come out this way. And they fade into there. And we have some coming there, and then we have this area here where we've got lots of little, and they come up and we put them further apart and less often as we move further up, because that's where the colour is going into the lighter section. And again, make sure this is all done random. Don't sort of, so move around your paper a lot. Don't sort of stick to one area, because you will tend to find that you're just putting lines down and they look too straight, which is not what we're looking for. And then over this side here, as we're coming into this darker area, so if we come down from here, if you look, we're just getting, it swoops round here a bit. That's then going into the darker area, so we can build that there, start to build that up, leaving some of the white showing through, or the white area. And then here we've got some, so again, I'm missing the paper as much as I'm hitting it. It's just, I want it very light. And then from light you can build up to a darker tone, but if you go too dark straight away, it's harder. And then here I'm just going to build up it's a little bit darker, so I'm still using the lighter colour, and then I'm just building it up and putting the feather sections closer together. So again, keep checking on the direction of form, which is the direction of the feathers. Okay. So we can see there, they're starting to build up nicely. Okay, and so we can get a nice idea of the sort of direction and the tone that these should be. Is we need to be, we put some of the darker areas in here, like this section here, then we can judge the tone. So this is a lot darker and it's more of a brownie, so it's sort of a brown colour. Again, quite, let's lighten it up a little bit. Okay, so I'm looking at it from, now there is a little bit of a fish's, one of the sand eel's tail bits coming, or the back end of it coming out here, so I just want to sort of block that bit in there. Okay, and then I'm looking again at the direction and how light in colour it can be, so I'll get a little section of it and lighten it off a little bit. So here where it goes into this whiter section is a lot lighter, but then as it comes down here, it's coming into the darker area, closer together, and then comes down here, and then they turn and come sort of that way there. Okay, and then working my way back up here, they're a bit lighter, so the paint as it comes off, I'm doing the lighter areas. Okay, and then right, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to leave that for a second, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my number 4 brush, get some fairly clean water, so this bit here now is fairly dry. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to literally put some clean damp water, so I'm drying the brush out so it's just damp, and I'm going to go over these sections that I've put the paint on. What it should do is soften in the feather lines so they're not quite as harsh, but you can still see them. Okay, so let me just put this light on. Oops, there we go. Put this light on a little bit so you can see it. So yeah, if we just sort of go over those, what it does, it just, the damp just sort of softens those fur line or feather lines in slightly, so they don't look quite as harsh. Okay, don't want to lose them all together, but we need to soften them in a little bit. So just by going over with a little bit of clean water, not too wet, and just soften those edges in. I'll soften those feather lines in. So you can see they are now starting to soften up a bit, and what you'll get is a bulk bit of colour behind, which is building up that colour section. That when you look at it on the iPad, you'll see what I'm talking about. You know, it does look slightly darker in colour at the bottom here. Okay, so I'm just going over them nice and soft, softening them up. Okay, same down here. Okay. Okay, so that's the first layer. So then what we've got to do is sort of let that dry, which doesn't take long because it's only a very, you know, we're only putting small strokes on. It's not like we're putting hundreds and hundreds of strokes on. But we've got to get this line down here a bit more definite. So now I'm going to start to build up this darker area. So I've made some grey up, but made it a little bit browner than I have blue. Okay. And I'm taking some of the paint out so that it's not. And then I'm looking at my reference photo, so it does actually come up side of that gate there. And then it comes out sort of in a like that. And then down here it's sort of straightish there. And then it's quite a straight line down here. And then this is where it starts to fade back in. So little and spaced out here. Okay, so just little and spaced out, and then here we pull them together a bit more, and then that's sort of one there. So they're lighter at this edge, so space them out a bit more there, and then as you get towards the centre bit and this end, they sort of clump together, so we can just actually fill that in as quite solid, but just get some little sort of feathery bits coming out towards the end. And then obviously here it's a lot, so we want to soften that in. So I'm just going to get some clean water and pull it out and just soften that bit in. So it's nice and soft there. Okay. So it comes around there. And it's softened there. And then I need quite a dark and almost black, so mix the ultramarine blue and the burnt sienna together, and then here I'm just going to put a few little darker lines in, especially around here. Okay, these are closer together, and then space them out more here and up here as well. So you can see how we are actually, whoops, what's a bit of, there's an paper, there we go. So you can see where we're building this colour up a little bit here. Okay, and then just one more area where it's really dark. I'm going to put in a couple of really dark. So these will be spaced out a lot more, but coming closer together here, and that should propel the white section forward more. Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll put a wash over that in a bit when it's dried with a bit of burnt umber, just watered down. So let me get another palette, give it to the burnt umber. Very watered down burnt umber. So as you can see here, it's very watered down, just there we go. And put some of those. That's it. And then right on the edge here now, I'm just putting in some of this watery burnt umber so that it comes down here, so it starts to transition into these other colours quite nicely. Okay, I'm using the very tip of this brush, so I'm almost standing it upright, and I'm only lightly touching the paper. And if you look, when I put the brush on, I sort of put it on, pull it and lift it, and you get some very, so you get a nice random effect, and it does look like you've got some sort of feathery effect going off. Okay. Again, got some little bits up here, not many, just here and there. Okay, and then round here. So this sort of makes its way round this band of colour. Okay. And then I'm going to, so we've got a few darker areas in there, so I'm mixing a bit of a darker colour up, so the purpley colour, purpley grey colour, slightly darker, and then just round here we have a few, just randomly put in some darker sections just here. Okay. Then we can do this section here. So what I'm going to do now, I'm pulling this down. So if you look, it is a lot darker here. So I'm going to pull this colour down. It's a little bit broader there, and then most of the darker colour comes to this side here, because this is like a bit of feather that's overlapping this. So it's going to cast a little bit of a shadow here. And then obviously we've also got some lighter sections sort of coming up that way a little bit, and then we move down here, we can just filter these in by spacing them out a little bit more. We've got some odd flicks of feathers in different directions, so if we just put a little bit of those in, it shows a little bit of movement in the feather detail, because obviously, you know, feathers move and the wind catches them, so, you know, just flicking a few of them up in different directions just gives you that sort of look of movement. So then I'm going to rinse my brush out. I'm going to take some of that out. I'm actually going to water that lilac-y, the purple grey, the violet grey as we call it, out, and I'm actually just going to put a little bit of a wash over these feathers just to soften them in, but it's got a little touch of colour on it as well this time instead of just water, but it's very light. There we go, just in the darkest areas and around where this band of colour goes, so it softens those feather-like tufty feathers in there. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, with some clean water, I'm just going to soften the other ones in, so that when they come around here they look nice and soft. Okay. There we go. And just soften these odd ones in here that disappear. Just there we go. And then we've got that band of colour there. Okay, so that's sort of like his head. So you can see he's got, you know, I mean, if you look at the birds close up, you know, I mean, they're in the sea elements. They've got salt water hitting them, wind, And when they land in the water, when they go fishing, you know, they're not going to come out pearly white. So you have to look at the other colours that you can see in there, and as long as you get the right sort of colours in there and a little bit of variety of colour, so it's not all dark, and then it seems to go away into that light bit there. I'm just going to put a little bit of the burnt umber. Right, so where's my burnt umber? It's there, isn't it? So a little bit of the light burnt umber. I'm just going to put a wash of that over here. That's it. So we've got that there. Okay, so that's where this dark bit's coming in there. So let's have a look at the top of the bird. And we'll deal with the bottom as we move down, just so that I don't smudge it with this. You know, got the paper on top. So now on the top of the bird, if you look, we have got, excuse the light, we've got some very light areas here, and then they come in and we've got some greys here, but they're sort of, I mean, on there it looks a little bit red, but they are more of a violet grey when you look at the picture itself. So very much these are the colours that have been reflected in the head of the bird here, you know, what we've just been working on. So we've got the violet greys and the browny greys. Okay, so again we start with a very light violet grey. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little bit of the pink to it again. That's it, make it a little bit more, it looks a little bit more predominantly pinky purple on the top. And we start, so look very carefully, and it's leaving a sort of, so we're doing these short short feathery movements again, and if you look very carefully, okay, so we'll do them randomly, and it's quite light at the top, so spaced out. Okay, and then as we come further down here, they start to get dark and go into the lighter section of the bird's face. Okay, so we're just putting in these light sections first, so they're spaced out more. But again, just look at the direction in which the feathers are going. Okay. And also if they change colour. Okay. So I'm just going to mark in where this head. So again, I'm watching. So they sort of come up that way there, and then these turn down here. And then that goes right down the back, and then it turns that way there. Okay. So we've got, I've drawn in the sort of part of which it's going to go. Okay. It gets a lot darker here. And got some of the darker bits here, but they're spaced out more because they're obviously, we're going into a, transitioning into a lighter section there. So I'm just going to get some of the lighter colour now. Go back, transitioning in some of this lighter colour so it's right on the edge. So you can see the two colours mingle, but the more layers we can put on of these different colours, you'll notice that you're giving the painting a lot more depth, and therefore giving it more shape. And if you do the tonal areas right, so the light's hitting the top of the head, then it gets darker as it comes down here. And here it's sort of, they've got this sort of line of where the feathers sort of like that, and then you've got this darker section that sort of runs through here, but it's sort of feathers, so you'd want to sort of do it randomly. Okay, and then down here is really, really dark. So that's going to be more of a blacky colour. And then just the mid-tones sort of in this area here. We've got some mid-tones here which transition out into that lighter area on the top of the head, and then some that transition down here into the darker section. Okay. Again, keep your eye on the direction and the length of the feathers. They're very short here. And again, I'm just using the point of the brush and just literally, and if you look, they're not straight lines, they've got a bit of a curve on them, which is, you know, that adds to the feather effect, because feathers aren't all straight. When they're in a bird, they do bend with his head, and you know, you can see the movement in them. So by doing that, so you can see now how we're building this up. Looks a little bit sketchy at the moment, but the more layers, as I say, we put on, build the colours up, but without losing the tones, where the dark areas are, where the light areas are. There's some mid-tones there, and then as it comes down here, it obviously gets a lot darker. It's sort of a reddy black, really. It's got quite a burgundy black colour to it, so I have put some red in it as well. Now in the really dark sections up here and up its back of its head, I've actually put in some rose madder. It's a little bit darker. You could put well, you could still put permanent rose in, as long as you've got a nice darkish black, browny black colour, then that will add to it. So I'm just building these up now. So coming down here is really dark, so I'll just build that up layer by layer. To the back of the neck. Okay. Still putting in some of those mid-tones in here as well. Okay. Got some lighter tones up on here, right on the top of his, where the feathers are. Okay. I find this part of the painting quite relaxing. As I say, you can see it looks sketchy at the minute, and it's going to take a lot more layers to sort of get there, but we will get there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to put on just a very watery wash of the pinky, the purpley colour. Okay, so it softens the feathers in, but it won't get rid of them totally. It just softens them in a lot more, so it doesn't make the edges so hard. Okay, and just wash that over the whole of the head, what we've done so far. I'm using a number 4. Just want to get quite a bit of the area covered, so I'm just doing a nice glaze over it. So in other words, it's very, very, very watery, and it's a glaze, so it's just going over the whole of the darker section of the bird's head. Okay. And then we can see, so it's softened them off a lot, but we can still see where the darker section of the head is and where the lighter section of the head is. And we've got this sort of bit of a darker section coming down here. So we can now go back, just get a bit of a darker colour. Okay, take off some of the excess and then start to work in another row. As I say, where it's dark, you want to put lines closer together, and where it's lighter, you sort of pull them apart. I'm just going to let it dry a little bit more. It's just, I haven't quite let it dry soft enough. Right, let me just look here. I'm just going to soften that up a little bit more. That's fine. Right, where have we got here? Let's have a look. I'm just now going to reddy grey, the violet grey. I'm just going to put another glaze, a very fine glaze over here, pulling it out into that lighter area so you can see where the violetty grey is. Okay, I've got quite a bit of that sort of coming round here. Okay, that's it. That should soften that in a bit more. So always keep, you know, if you see that once you start putting a colour down, if you're going to have to adjust the rest of it, just keep adjusting it. Okay, so that's adjusted quite nicely. So back to the top of the head now, which is drying out. So I'm going to start with the darkest area. So this is really dark down here. So the lines are going to be short, not spaced out, closer together. And then as they go into a lighter area, space them out and just move them around a bit more. So on the back of the head, because it's getting quite dark, you're not going to see every single individual feather, but you're going to see some of them. So this is why we can put them close together and just build up the depth. So you can see now that depth is building up there. So I'm going to have to darken that a little bit more, I think. Okay. It's still got that reddy, purpley tinge to it, so and it seems to be, and it's got some little jagged edges coming on into this white area here where the dark feathers start to fall over the light. Okay, it's still getting pretty dark up here. Just space them out a little bit more because it's got some lighter touches in it as well. And down here is a lot more solid because it's a lot darker. Okay. Okay. And then I'm just going back up here and I'm going to start pitching in the mid-tone now. So just slightly lighter, slightly lighten the colour to what the real dark colour was. And build up them layers. So still letting some of the lighter areas from underneath shine through. Okay, and then here we've got that little bit of a darker area again, so it comes round from the top of the head just there. Again, hardly touching the paper, and then that sort of some of the feathers there sort of go in that direction, start to turn there, and they create that sort of bit of a shadowy bit under there, which is not perfectly straight, but so a few where the light's hitting, it's giving the illusion that there's a line of feathers there. It isn't really, it's just a light effect, but we need to get that in the tonal direction. Okay, so now I'm just going to go a bit lighter again up here, because again we're going, we're going darker, it's still light, if you know what I mean. So okay, it's always a lot more solid colour here, not as much individual feathers on this side because it is getting darker. Okay, so let that dry off a little bit more. We can still see this line here, but it's giving it, it's like a bit of a tuft where the light's hitting certain parts of the feathers and then there's a shadow underneath. Okay. So I still need to go a little bit darker here. That's it. So at the back here, it's quite dark here. So I'm going to, you'd be surprised how much darker you can keep going. Plus we're putting it on top of a layer, so that's going to darken anyway. Soften them, so pull them out a little bit more. Again up here there's some dark sections there going into the light. Okay, pull that down, that's a little bit more solid in this area here, so you don't see as much detail basically. Okay, and here I'm just going to add a bit more dark to this line of shadow that we've got coming from here. Some darker areas here. Okay, so you can see each time we do a layer it's getting darker, but also the lighter areas are getting darker, but not, they're still a lot lighter than the dark areas. Okay. Once again, I'm just going to do another sort of light wash, sort of a ready violet wash over here. Glaze, should I say, not a wash, then a glaze. Okay. And then I'm just going to get this as dark as I can now, just for this last bit here, just so I can put some odd little dark hairs now everywhere, just so that it sort of unifies everything together. Okay, so that's most of the top of the head done. What I'll do is I'll let that dry, and if I need to make some adjustments, then I will. Okay, but for now that looks okay. So let me zoom out a bit, and then you can see now how the bird is developing. Okay, so we've got the dark cap, we've got these cheeks here, the gate and the bill. Okay, so then all of this down here, we've got to work on this. This is the dark section, but it has got, so what you have to be careful of, we do need a base layer because it has got these lighter sections in it as well. Okay. So for that again, I'm going to use we're going to use this, just underneath, it's sort of like, it's got some sort of violet greys in there again, and some sort of browns as well, so but reddy browns. So I'm going to put some birds in with a little bit of rose madder, I think, and then we're just going to sort of lighten that down. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a bigger brush for this now. So what I'm going to use is one of my oh, where's it gone? I'm sure I had them here. One of my squirrel brushes. So here we go. So I've got a quill brush here. Okay, so this is a quill brush. This one's a 01. So we've got all this area here. So I want to wet it nicely. So again, I'm just going to drop some water in the centre of the area that needs wetting, and then I'm just going to move it up and around to the edge of where we're going to put these colours. Okay, and then just make them soften into this where we finished with the lighter area at the bottom. Okay. Okay, so I'll let that there, and then pick up. Now you get quite a bit of colour on this brush, so we should be able to do it. So again, if I drop the colour in there, and then just lightly spread it out so we get a fairly light coating of this colour. Okay. Pull it down there, up into there, around the back there. Okay, so that's the base layer. Okay, so it doesn't look very purpley on there, but it has got a bit of the colour in, so it's got like a bit of a violet grey, which it is, it's a grey, but it's a violet grey. So I'm just going to put some more of this in different areas. So we've got some light bits and some dark sections. Okay. Okay, and then I'm just going to dab that bit there so it doesn't produce a hard, we don't want a hard line there. Okay. That nicely blend in, and then what we're going to do on here is we're going to do exactly the same process as we've done with the top. We're going to start with the lighter colours and build these areas up here. So we've got some here and then some lighter bits, just feathering in into the white areas there. They look a bit red on there because of the lighting, but it's they're a grey, violet grey, and you'll see from your own reference photo. So that's what you need to go by, is your reference photograph, and match the colours up. And I've always found that the Apple tablet is fairly true to the colours, and so I get as near to those colours as I can. Okay, so now that the top of the head's dried, I just need to put a few detailed feathers in it's lost quite a bit of its detail. It's sort of dried a little bit. Right, so if we just put some of those and space them out more, there, you see the transition a lot better. It looks a lot easier. Okay, there we go, so that looks a lot nicer there. Okay, so got to wait now for this to dry. Suppose what we could do, we have got some of these lighter colours transitioning into there, so we could actually, in the drier areas of here, we could, so that's going to come down there, so we've got some going up, so we could put some of these markings in very close together. So we're using a very light colour, and if you look at them, they do turn, they're not all in one straight line, and again they're random. That's the you know, the idea to creating feathers looking correct is random. But look also for the direction, make sure as long as they're going in the right direction as well. Okay, so like I said before, it's not about you following this step by step as such. I mean, you could watch the videos and then decide to work the puffin in a different way. You might like to do all the feather work first and then the eyes, and vice versa with other things. You could, but the main key areas that you have to think about are, you usually work with watercolour, you work light to dark to get the best results. I'm just doing a bit of cross hatching on here because that will give the feathers a little bit more of a realistic view. So cross hatching means you go in one direction and then just pull some in the other direction across it, so it's cross hatching, but it makes those feathers look a little bit more realistic. Okay, so they look a bit odd at the moment. Oops. There we go. They look a little bit odd at the moment because they're on the edge, but when we join them up with the others, they will no doubt look better. So I'm just going to take some very light water, just soften those in now, just so that you can see that they do look a bit softer and they're not as harsh. And these are the flyaway feathers that sort of are going into the white of the fur at the bottom in his chest. Okay, so we've got those in. But again, as I say, you could decide you want to do the beak first or the head first, or, but we do generally work light to dark. But also take in consideration, if you're right-handed, you want to work from the top left-hand corner and come down this way. Just so that you don't put your hand in. If you start on this side here and then you're working something up, you could put your hand in there. So you've got to be careful about that. Think about it. And the best thing to do is actually plan what you're going to do. So I sort of did I always work, me personally, I always do the eyes first. And then all the other key areas, which is the beak or the bill and the gate. I am leaving the fish well last. Again, they could be a key feature, so you could do them first, but I like to leave them well last. I like to get the actual bird in so that I can see that, like here, we've got this curve where the structure of the bill comes around the top of the eye and the top of the head, and it's a different texture to the feathers. So you can see that looks a lot harsher and that's a lot softer. But some people would prefer to do the bill first, but if you start with the bill, always start with the light colours first. Look if you need a smooth transition or a harsh, if you've got a harsh line anywhere, and that will dictate whether you wet the paper first or not. These are techniques, so I'm giving you as much advice as I can, but people do things differently, and I'm hoping, like myself, you start to develop and create your own way of working, which in turn gives your work an individual style. Right, so let's go back now. So this is sort of drying off. So what we need to do now is we've got the colours, so they're the same as what were on the back of the head here. This section of the back is going to be the darkest that comes down here, and it sort of comes around here and up there and then into there, and then these bits here, that's a dark bit there on that edge. It comes down to about here and then goes up there, and then this bit in between here is where we've got some of the lighter bits as well. So, and then these are sort of mid-tones at the back here, right at the back. So we'll start off with the lighter section first. So we can put in some feathers all over the bird initially with some lighter first strokes. So again, we're using the violet grey. Again, checking in which direction the fur's going. Now when you come to these white areas, just push it in, or you've got the feathers crossing. So okay, so we've got some. So you need to put some dark. This is what you call negative painting, when putting the dark into the lighter areas, and then we'll build that up so it's really dark, so that you can see, and that will make these areas a lot lighter. Okay, and I'm just sort of putting in. So what I'm doing here is I'm mapping out the colours. I'm using a lighter colour than what we're going to end up with, but I'm also mapping in the direction of the fur, and also the length in which we're going, the direction, and also mainly, as I say, the direction, to make sure we've got us going in the right, the feathers are going in the right direction, but they're also random. Don't make them. Now, some people prefer to do it that way. Some people might prefer to turn the work upside down and pull the feathers towards them. That again is entirely up to you, which is ever the easiest for you to work. And that's the most important thing. You've got to be comfortable when you're doing watercolour. So just because I'm pulling the strokes down that way doesn't mean you have to. You might want to pull them the other way. Again, as I say, it's entirely up to you. So I'm just now I'm trying to look at some of the direction of some of these feathers now. And some sort of curve that way and some curve over the top. Again, that's another thing you need to, and a lot of that comes with experience. So, you know, don't expect to be able to pick that up straight away. But so they sort of curve that way because they're coming under and out, and these ones curve over because they're going over the top. And in between that, we've got some lighter areas. So I'm leaving. If you look, I'm sort of spacing these out a little bit less here. So we've got. So these are closer together where the darker areas are, and then where we've got some bits of lighter areas showing through, I'm sort of spacing them out a little bit more. But again, I'm looking as to whether they're curving out or in. So that's quite a thick clump of feathers there. So your initial layers are all about sort of mapping out what information you need to be able to see to complete the rest of the layers, and that could be different for everybody. Some people like to do it sort of negative painting way, or you know, just as they go along. Other people like to work in a certain area and then move on to another area. I mean, some of these feathers here I've noticed are coming round like that, here. So we've got this clump of feathers just here that's sort of, let me just move this up so you can see it. Zoom in a little bit. So if you look here, this clump of feathers, it's like that, and then the others are coming that way. And then I've just left a gap there so that we've got a bit of a lighter section. And that gives me some information for when I do the next layer. So some of these will sort of cross hatch, as we call it. So you've got some going that way, some going that way, and they cross over. But that gives me information, and that's what I'm looking for. Okay. Some of them are coming over, some are coming under. So now I'm noticing, just before we go into the real dark section here, that these changing direction slightly and are coming and they're meeting down here. So from this side, they're coming that way, like that. And then that side, they're coming that way, and they meet sort of here. Now, this is the darkest area of the back of the bird. Okay. And then these sections are getting closer together. They're not as widespread. So your first layer is going to look a little bit messy, but it's giving you, like I said, it's giving you some information as what information you need to be able to move the painting forward. Okay, and then these sort of fan out a little bit that way and that way. Okay. I always say a painting goes through several ugly layers before it pulls itself together. And it takes patience and you know, I mean, I'm looking at this now and I'm thinking, oh my God, have I done it all wrong? Is it all in the wrong direction? But just through experience, I do know that it will end up looking somewhat like I want it to look. Now, whether that's right or wrong, again, is down to people that appreciate art. You know, different people see different things. Some people really like abstract and some people don't. Some people like contemporary, some people don't. There's realism, there's all sorts of art, and everybody's taste is different. And that has to be taken into account. So you never say any artist's work is bad, because it isn't. It's just who it appeals to that's important. And this is why I think it's important that everybody sort of begins to develop their own style of painting. Now, okay, realism. Take realism, for instance. I love realism, but my realism might look different and is recognisable to my style, but it might look different to anybody else that does realism. And that's the point. But if I sort of follow somebody step by step all the time, eventually I end up painting. So even if I do my own sort of commission of a dog, people say, oh, well, that's painted in the style of so-and-so, because they recognise somebody's style. And that's what I say about art. It's finding your own style and your own comfort zone, really, as well, what you like to do. So I never say to anybody, right, just stick to one subject. Try all different subjects. You might find you like certain things more than you do others. I mean, I started off with landscapes. And yes, I do still occasionally do a landscape. But I'll be honest with you, my passion lies with animals and birds especially. I love doing birds. But that's something I've learned through trying, to develop my own style. I've always had pets as well, so, I've had quite a lot of experience with animals. But I would say to you as well, eventually when you do sort of come across a subject that you like doing more than anything else, learn about it, learn to draw it, learn about composition, you know, there's lots of things you need to learn when it comes to art. It's not just about the subject, you know, just, oh, right, plank, I'm going to put an animal down or a bird. I mean, I learned about the structure of birds, the wings, how they're formed, what parts there are in a bird and in an animal. And it you know, using light to create cheekbones in dogs, and just so it gives it a more of a 3D feel. And to do that, you need to learn and study the subject that you're doing. But it's good to do that, and you're experimenting as you're going along, and you're learning things about yourself as well. All right, so I'm now doing another layer where I'm putting some dark pieces on, because I need to know where the darker areas are going to be. Okay, and then also pulling off where some of the lighter fur is going to be. So now as we start to come down here, I'm spacing the lines out. They're not as close together or as often, and that's because we've got quite a lot of light areas shining through on here. And it's all to do with the light and the way the feathers fall when they come out of the water. So here we've got quite a lot of light space here. So I'm just going to put some of the dark sections in. Again, some of these are cross-hatched, because that's where we get texture. Okay. So we've got quite a lot of light area here. There we go. So you can see I'm leaving some of the lighter area there, which we will be putting more colour in. But just at the moment, I don't need to put that much more colour in there. And then I'm going to map in now this darker section. So here I'm putting some dark, but very sparsely. Now here is where it gets really dark, and we want them quite close together, but I also want to see a bit of this white, or the neck, the face fur blending into the neck of the bird here. Let me zoom out a bit because you're not actually seeing what I'm doing there. There's such a... There we go. Sorry about that. I am going to be getting better with this. I get so carried away with the painting. I keep forgetting to look up and see what you guys are seeing, which is not very good of me actually, but I will get better. So now I can see this feather is going a little bit more. So this is where it starts to go in the different directions here and meets up in the middle. Okay, so again I'm putting some information in that helps me. Oh, just bear with me. That's it. So this puts information in that helps me. So making sure I've got it in the right direction. There we go. And this is quite dense, this fur, so it is quite dark. So making sure. And then as I come into the sort of mid-tone areas, I sort of pull off a little bit and don't put as many strokes and as close together as what I do where it's really dark. So I'm mapping out now where the darker area is. So it's sort of right under the middle of the eye, so it comes from there. Okay. So this is more solid colour here at the back. So if I can get this in. Again, though, it doesn't all go in at the same, it's not a straight line all the way down. It's, don't forget, these are in, you know, rows and rows of feathers, so they're going to overlap each other. Okay. So I'm just going to keep going like this. Oops. Just put a bit of water on my picture there, just make sure I get that off. Okay, so that's all going this way. Looking at it again. So now when it comes over here, it starts to curve this way because it's coming over. It's sort of coming over like equivalent of our shoulder blades, really. Okay, so it curves over, whereas here it curls under. Okay. These are all fairly close together. Okay. Constantly looking in the direction I need to be. Again, where it's darker, I'm putting more strokes and putting them close together. Okay. Again, these are going underwards, so it looks like they're going that way, curling inwards, and then these ones are starting to curl outwards. Another thing is, I mean, normally I'm just showing you guys now, so everything, you know, the paper staying portrait, but I do move my painting around, so I may turn it into different directions for what's easier for me to paint, and I suggest you do the same. So you might not like to paint in this direction all the time, so move your paper or your book or block or whatever you're working on into a comfortable position for you. Okay, so let me just mix some more of this paint up here. So some of that, some of that, and some of that. Okay, add a bit more of the darker to it. Okay. That's going to be the darkest, so I'll be darkening that up a lot in a bit more. I just want to so make sure that's going to be darker as we go along. Okay, now here I can see the slight colour change where we've got a browny red in here. So again, I'm just putting in plenty of cross hatching here, right on the edge of where the feathers sort of come out into the body, into the white of the body. Sort of, some are going that way and some are curling this way. So again, you know, try and keep, you'll not get it exact, but if you just sort of give the illusion of what it's doing, the fur. As I say, fur isn't in straight lines, not feathers, sorry. Well, fur as well is not always in a straight line, but you know, randomly we need to put them in. So I'm just looking where we've got some sort of darker shadows and then some more spaced out. This is the area that's got a lot of light areas in it as well, but it's also got clumps of darker areas. So keep your eye on what you're doing. And then this is quite a lighter area there. And then here is where we come into the mid-tone area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get so all the time this is all drying fairly nicely. So I just want to put a nice sort of glaze over this. So I'm going over the lighter areas as well, because like I say, what happens is you'll see when you put it on, makes the darker areas dark and the lighter areas just, you know, dark, but you know, still a lot lighter tone than the dark areas. Okay, so I'll put a nice glaze on there. Now the glaze I've used is I mix some burnt sienna with a bit of permanent rose and a little bit of the grey in, just to give it a sort of grey tinge. I just want to sort of get a feel for where I'm going with this. Okay, so you can see once I move it out how that is sort of a lot darker than this area here, but it's getting there. It'll all start to sort of develop into similar areas. So now I'm just going to put in this section here is a bit more of a bluey undertone on the back here, so I'm just putting in a bit darker base layer of a bluey grey rather than purpley grey. So the back here has got more of a bluey grey, or a grey that's got a cool tendency to it. So I'm just going to put that in here, so we've got a bit more of a base layer to work with. Okay, for that to dry. See, this now is looking out. I'm quite pleased with that. And when we get the fish in, it should look really should look like something. Okie dokie. So let's have a quick glance. So that's okay. So that's what we're aiming for. So the colours will be different. When you paint, the colours tend to be, well, I tend to work with them slightly darker than what they are in real life, because, like I say, watercolour, you've got to remember, when you're mixing the colours, mix them darker because they do dry lighter. That is one thing. You're never going to get exactly the same colours, and it can look a bit washed out if they're too light. So, when it comes to doing white feathers or a space of white fur, yes, you do have a lot of colours in it, and they will be a bit darker than what they are on the actual animal. But, it's something that you work with, and you do develop yourself over time. Okay, so I'm just going to curve that up a little bit more so it looks a little bit more rounded rather than flat. There we go. Okay. I'm just kind of carry on building up this darker area here. So we've got the dark bit on this side that goes and curves this way. Okay, and then look at the shape of it. So it sort of curls around into there, and then we have sections here where the feathers sort of appear. So here's one section with all the feathers sort of going, and it creates a clump there, and then we've got some more that go all the way along there. So I'm sort of doing my brush curling one way and then the other way, just so that we get that sort of impression. And then we've got another section here. And then all the time in between, I am leaving some lighter areas. So we've got these lighter areas that show through. And they start to, look like, because the feathers do lay in a line as such on top of each other, but they're just quite random. They're not a definite. So I get the shadows down there. There we go. So I've got a nice set there of feathers that are sort of, some are in the dark and some are light, so they've got the light coming through, and then here we've got the very dark section again. So this dark section comes down from here, I'm just going to build this dark section up a little bit more. Okay, So another layer and that will be quite dark. And then these feathers just want to sort of be spaced out but come out a little bit more. And then we've got some feathers that actually come quite round here. But look, they sort of come. So I'm doing some that way and I'm doing some that way. And these straggly ones that come out while we're there. Some of the cross-hatched feathers there as well. Okay, so you can see now how it's all starting to pull, and then this bit here is where it gets a lot darker because it's coming back into this more solid. You don't see as much detail in this area because it is quite thick black feathers. The light's not shining through them as much. They're more solid feathers. So finish them down there. Show that top bit sorted up there. Okay. Let's say this comes down this way, like that. And then I'm just gonna that's it. Okay. Some really dark areas here. There's hardly any light getting through. And they come down here into this section that we've got here. Okay. Start to get a bit lighter as they come over there. And then just need to darken this up again, just a slight smidgen. Okay. And there the lighter bits there. Okay. So, as I say, if I move that in different directions, you can see the different colours. Okay. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to wait for them to dry slightly now, so it shouldn't take long. And then what we're going to do, we're going to put a glaze over that bit. And then we're going to finish off. Now this side, as we're coming further down, where we've got this warmer colour, we're going to go into a darker, a cooler colour, so it's going to be a lot bluer. So I'm actually going to add blue to the mix. So it's a bluey grey. There are slight pockets of the warm colour as well. So, you know, still keep some of the warm colour available, because we do have pictures of the warm colour as well. Yes, but it's a more of a bluey grey as we come down here. So actually I'm going to put some blue, because we have got a sort of blue colour that starts to come out here on the back. So I'm just looking at which direction that goes in. And then we've got this light patch. I'm not going right up to the edge here, because we have got some light, quite a lot of light colour, so that's got to merge with that nicely. So we will put a glaze over that eventually, and then a little bit of light touching here, so some light patches. Okay. And then here it's sort of bluey. So I'm marking where all the bluey areas are going. So again, it's going to start to look a bit messy again, but as I say, paintings, as far as I'm concerned, go through quite a few ugly stages before they start to look anything like they should. Right, so we have got some warmer areas still here, and just slightly lighter than that, so we can see that V going into the back of the neck, to the shoulder blades. Still need to be able to see that. So that's there. So it's just sort of a mid-tone rather than, so it's not going to be quite as dark a tone as what we've been using. And then it's got to fade into this sort of bluey, the bluey tone that we've got in the back as well. Okay, we've got some warm tones down here. So these are more warm tones, so we've got mixtures of warm and cool on here, but more cool on the back. But not missing out on the warm tones as well. So just going all the way now down to the back again. As I say, if you look, we've got quite a few dark colours and light colours, and the feathers are sort of cross-hatching, got curling one way and then the other. So if we do that, then you will, even though you can't, you know, because it's a more solid colour, but every time we put a layer on with a different colour and you're doing this randomly, you will get this effect, and it will produce what you're looking for, which is the overall effect of the feathers, which are looking a bit, they look quite cross-hatched, so that you can see it creates a good looking type of feather. Okay. So I'm just mixing my colours up slightly here, so moving away now from the very blue colour to a more grey darker grey but with a blue hint to it rather than the warmer colour, but I will be putting a glaze of the warmer colour over the top now. So I'm going to start to so as you can see, I'm doing the feathers. There's not a great deal of feather detail on the back here. It's more colour changes, but as I say, if we do it using the feathery motion with the brush and going in that direction, then you know it will give you the sort of, well, I found for me it does anyway, it gives me the effect that I'm looking for, and that I know which way the feathers are going. Okay. I'll go down with that. Blend that into there a bit more. And keep going over the different layers again with more brush strokes, and you can see that the feathers are starting to appear, and that on this side they are a lot cooler looking than what they are on the other side. Around the neck and underneath, whereas on the top here they're looking slightly cooler. And then what I'm going to do, as I say, I'm going to put in a glaze. So I'm leaving some spaces, and then what I shall do is put a glaze of a warm colour on once this is dry. And then I think we'll finish this one, and then the last video we're going to concentrate on the fish. Okay, so what I'll do is I will need some, I'm going to put up a document, so if you want to print off the document that gives you the fish colours, because we will be using some other slight different colours. Okay, so that's that for now, and then before we finish tonight, what I want to do is I'm going to mix up another glaze. So I've got my grey, so now I just need to make it a little bit warmer. So I've added some a bit more burnt sienna to it, and then I've actually added a little bit of rose madder to it as well. So it's more of a browny glaze than a blue. And then this top end here is more of a blue, so I'm actually going to make a bluey grey. Okay, and we're going to add that glaze to the other side. So where we've got some warmer glazes, I've got this colour, which is, it's a grey, but it's got a little bit of the burnt sienna and rose madder more in it. And then on this side we've got more of a bluey grey. So they are two different shades. I'm just going to put a glaze over the bird, and then we're going to leave it for tonight, and then I'm going to do the final video with the fish on, and then also on that video we're going to look at any adjustments that are going to need doing for the bird altogether. Okay, so at the top here it should have dried out now, so I'm just going to put on a glaze. So I'm putting on a glaze of the warm colours now. So just, it's one colour, so you need, don't keep going over it, just cover one section. Okay. So if you look, that should now, once that's dry, it should start to make those feathers look a little bit better. Okay. I'm just waiting for this section to dry a little bit. While I'm here, I'm just going to now finish off with this glazy colour. I'm just going to finish off some more of these because we have missed out on some of these that just come loose and they're coming into this white fur there. Okay, yep, so we've got some of those in there. So now I'm putting the cooler glaze over parts where we've got, that's mostly at this back end here, so into that blue area there, and it's going to fetch in some of this dark so it blends in nicely, and also it'll keep those areas there light. Okay, so that's quite a bluey area. Okay, and then I need this warmer tendencies. So we need the warmer sort of grey glaze. Okay, so let me just get that, and that's going to come from here. So we've got to make sure it blends in nicely here. And again, I'm putting in the direction of the feathers, so we should get some nice effects. I've just got a little bit of a patch there, which is not, I don't think it's not rubbed off the masking fluid properly, so I'm actually going to put in some more dark. That's it, just to compensate and fill that in a little bit more. There we go. That's better. And I'm just going to make sure I've got my feathers lined up properly there. Okay, it's still a little bit damp, but you can see that's where it's really light coming in there, and then we've got some light colours and some darker. So we've got the warm colours and the cool colour greys in there as well, but we've not got a lot of detail because, as I say, you can't really see a lot of the detail in there. So it's all about getting the tones in there and the different colours, but I'm doing it more of a glaze than anything, and then just putting some finer details in there at the end. Okie dokie. Okay, so when that dries, that should look very nice. So I'll leave that for now. So let's zoom out so you can have a look at how he's looking now. Okay, so that's the puffin for now. The glare you're getting on it is the light, so let me just move that slightly so you can see now where we've got the darker feathers, and then these are cooler looking and these are warmer looking, but they blend in because you've got a bit of the warm in here as well as the cool. Got quite a bit, you know, we've got some warm colours in here as well. There's some of the cool colours as well, and you'll see them when they've dried better. So I'm going to leave that for now, and then we're going to come back for the last video tomorrow, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the fish. So I will upload another document with the fish colours in, because I'm going to use some different colours for the fish. Some nice bright blues. If you look, got some nice bright blues. We've got some pinkies, some mauves, greens. Yeah, quite a bit of olivey green in there. We've even got a few bits of red in there as well. So, and some yellowy green there. Purples and blues. So we've got some nice variety of colours in there and some whites as well. So we've got to be how we blend them in. But for now, the puffin itself is finished. I'm quite pleased with that. I'll probably have another look at it tomorrow. I always, with myself, and I suggest to students, if they want to, they can leave it a day and then have a look tomorrow and see if there's anything that they need to adjust. So there could be parts that you want to adjust to make it look a little bit more authentic, or you might think that the tone needs changing. It might need darkening in areas and lightening in other areas. So we'll have a look at that as well. Okie doke. So that's the puffin for now. I hope you're pleased with it. Any messages you want, please just message me. If you think I'm talking too much, or if I'm not giving you the correct information, or there's certain information you do want, please don't hesitate. Let me know, because I can't rectify what I don't know. Okay. I hope you enjoy painting it as much as I have. As I say, the first time round I did it in acrylics and I wasn't too impressed, but I'm not really an acrylic artist, so I do prefer working with watercolour. Well, good luck everybody, I hope you enjoy it, and as I say, the last part is going to be the fish. Okay, so I'll see you tomorrow to complete the last section. Okay, thanks a lot for watching.